Yes.
So it's on that she has all those people.
You know, and I don't know if I know it or not.
You always get you.
Well, no, it's in.
You're falling asleep. Yes.
I think because they are much more so the starting. Now, we're gonna do it.
It's much.
Yeah.
So bad. Just slip out. But I was gonna say, I don't know where this.
Hey, but Phil,
My job was.
Phil, it's well overdue.
Still don't have. Oh, the tango after?
What's on my first? Yeah, the one. Went down there. I think it's long. Yo, I think. We have our own. No.
I like it. Fixes.
Yeah. There is no. 1 hour today.
I think there's.
No, it's not so very. Yeah, that's our own. Around it, there are a lot of rings.
Well, you.
Yes.
Yes, I will. On your file. Yeah.
I had experience with it. Yes, I go to something.
Are you like? Yes.
Hey, you.
Success for this babies in one city, bro.
What time do they do it? Get 40. Oh, Well, for one, I'm gonna. Oh, okay.
I hope she was. Oh, okay. So.
I don't.
Sometimes they don't. It's overtime, if you want to say we don't come to the man, and if not, if I Richard once, somebody do it after you like.
Yeah, excuse me. I'm very.
No, the guy is so.
Sign-in sheet today, our sign-in sheet specialist is not with us. So our vice president, acting secretary, and acting sign-in sheet person is Tom. But thank you for thinking of that. It was important that we try to keep the try to keep the minutes accurately. Part of that is who's here, who's not, what happens not, the who goes. So a couple of open remarks today. I was just scrolling through my email and I noticed that there are 3 notices from concierge that 3 of our colleagues passed away just yesterday. I'll give you the names. I don't think it was wrong. We have Harold Hyatt, Joan McDonald, and Lee Garlock. All like yesterday, so. Did you hear all the names? Sorry. Lee Garlock, Harold Hyatt, Joan McDonald. Okay. They all had been independent, but they moved to the health center. So, congratulations to those who participated in Earth Week. It was a busy week, active week. Lots of stuff was learned, a lot got done. And on to next year. As a side note, the program known as Cycling Without Age, formerly known as Pedicab or whatever else we called it, seems to be back. Larry and I and others got an email from Paul Steely White, the head of it. He has also emailed Jason, and Jason will soon get a schedule, and I'm sure Jason will, as he did before, put that out to the community. So those of you who were interested in taking this ride, do it. And I did it myself, a little test ride. I had fun. It was, I don't know if anybody's in the room who did it, but those who were, which I think it was fun. So that's my opening remarks. Does anybody at the table have an opening remark?
Just to add on to what you said about Steely Dan, the cycling, they've also been making special arrangements with the health center.
Oh, that's what I was thinking. Okay.
What's special?
To get people.
Oh, they contacted Sue Close directly as opposed to going through Jason. Okay. First ears. Alice, could you come up and get a microphone or take one from Yaka? Thank you.
I have been requested by Alice Cross, who is currently in skilled nursing, to read the following 2 statements. Bear in mind, this is the other Alice speaking. I want to voice my gratitude to all of you who have sent cards, words of encouragement, and have even visited me in skilled. Your thoughtfulness is very much cherished and appreciated. And now to another matter for your consideration. As many of you recall, I have served as chairman of the Residents' Council Nominating Committee. In that role, my committee and I have experienced a sometimes difficult job getting residents to run for the stated 2-year term. With the change of term to 3 years in the proposed bylaws, I anticipate much greater difficulty securing candidates. Although it is common for other CCRCs to have 3-year terms, I do not believe that Woodland Pond must follow suit. Woodland Pond should adopt the format which suits our needs and reality. In closing, many thanks for your thoughtful kindness and consideration.
Thank you for reading that. And if Alice is listening, it doesn't look like she's on YouTube, Zoom. But anyway, thanks for her for taking this time from her sickbed to think about matters that have been under her purview, and we appreciate what she did. I just 10 minutes ago spoke to Wayne about, I just found out the other day that Alice is for sure not coming back to independent living. And so she'd be less able to participate, but I'd hope to see her around and about and participating in that committee, even not in the leadership. I don't know what her ability is, but I hate to lose her totally.
Well, the gears are still working.
Okay. Well, here's where, but she has the file with all the how-tos and what fors and this and that, so, please don't shred it out. Yeah, but there's a black box on the room. I know her son's in town. Anything else from the audience? Okay, do you have something, Margaret?
Well, I just wanted to say that he
Hold on, hold on.
he is cleaning out her room, so maybe somebody should go around and look and see where
Hold
everything
on.
is.
She knows what it is.
Yeah, her son is there packing up today as I walk by, so somebody might want to check on it. How about-
Yeah, I guess that'd be me. So, not on the agenda, but as a council item, but just by coincidence. Carl and I had the same thought yesterday afternoon, following Michelle's address. And our thought, this is a thought, and I'd just like to, quick reactions, pass the microphone around. We won't be able, Wickle Pond doesn't seem to be able to do anything right now, that money they want to borrow was all tied up. But Carl and I both had this idea, suppose that the capital campaign, which is not anything official, but suppose that the community was to get behind the concept of having a capital campaign, raising some money now, enough money to complete one part of the proposed project. Nothing specific, but something that was mentioned in an earlier iteration in terms of the capital campaign was raise enough money to build a new pack. The price tag on that was then round number 5 million. All I want to do this morning is see, is that a good idea to suggest that to Michelle? Is that a bad idea? And that's all I got to say about it. So,
No idea is a bad idea.
well, okay.
Well, she may not have thought about that yet. She's got so many things on her
Yeah.
plate.
I don't think it's practical. I don't know whose pocket's gonna be reached into or sought from. That's not what I'm asking about. It's, in my mind, it's a way of trying to get something done that wouldn't ordinarily be done at this time. It seems to be that is the one thing pack that the community seems to say, boy, we need a better pack, a newer packet, and that could be done as a standalone, from what I'm told. Dave Roberts would be the better voice on that. If you want to say something, please take a microphone so we could all hear what you have to say. And as John said, there's no bad ideas, it's just we'll hear what's on people's minds. Jakob, somebody at the back had something to say.
Yeah,
I was just muttering, yeah, you need to speak. I went, no.
Please take the mic so the world can hear.
I thought the world could already.
No.
I'm teasing. I'm teasing. My comment was just that, I would run that by Dave Robertson first, because that's, it's always more expensive to do something standalone than to do it as part of a larger project.
I'm just going to say something about that 1 second. Yesterday, one of the things that I meant to comment on, but Paul just did it 10 seconds before I did, is that there are things that probably can be done even within the budget that we have, independent of raising more money, and things that do not depend on, having the permit or just being the construction. So it's all internal things. So I don't think it's a bad idea to suggest that to Michelle. And I'm sure that she will not move on any of that without consulting with the team,
I wasn't gonna take what
Yeah.
our group think and say, this must be so.
No, I understand that, but even the suggestion would be, Carol had.
Sue? Oh. And then, okay, Carl, and then come back to that. Say yes. Carl, somebody in the back first. Yeah.
Hi, I'm Sue Cusack again. I just wanted to say, I think it's a good idea because I think it would show support. Yesterday was a heartbreaker, I think, for Michelle and have to let us know all about that. And I thought she was very transparent. She's up against some tough state things going on. So I think it would show a great support. I know my family looked into this place and you're supposed to be financially secure, fiduciary, able to carry on. Because I was in the treatment field, and there was a lot of abuse on treatment centers. And we had to produce our fiduciary project every year to show that we were standard. This place was A+. Michelle has, and there's the board here and everyone, you can feel so secure, and she continues to show us that. So anything we can do to support them, I'm all for it.
Carl?
I just wanted to remind you that somebody said it's a new idea. It's not. We discussed it with Michelle several months ago, but it never went anywhere because she thought everything could be done with the borrowing we were about to do. Since it appears that we're not gonna be able to borrow for a long time, it was my feeling that we should get behind the $1 million has already been spent to make this project happen and keep it going. And the only way to do that is if we step up. And it'll make it happen, begin to happen this year. Because we're ready to put spades in the ground, if we can come up with the money. Michelle has looked at the finances of everybody here, and it's apparent that there is a great deal of money which could be contributed if we go about it properly.
Several comments. First, I take what Taylor Eskew has just said very seriously. A standalone is always more expensive. And those of you who don't already know, Taylor has extensive experience as a project manager. And projects sometimes much bigger than what we contemplate. So that's that. Now, as far as taking it on as a standalone, I don't think there's any such thing as a standalone in an existing property. It also is always going to have ramifications on other things that you may not think about. It will be if it proceeds as planned, it would be attached to the outer wall of the library. That's going to affect the library. What is that going to mean? It's also going to mean that you have to have a separate entrance to the back. Where's that going to come from? Probably somewhere down the hallway near the lobby. So there's all kinds of ramifications. It's not just one building. You have to think about all the very things that come along with that.
I actually have a question. I believe nonprofits can contribute to nonprofits in some manner, because we looked at that on the benefit committee. And my question would be, is there anything to prevent us from thinking about corporate outside donation from other supporting agencies?
Joe already looked at that.
Well, oh, yes, she can, I think she can tap on any door and say, yeah, may I please, if she wants, but. So thank you, we got some sense that, okay, but it's not enough, it's okay, but look at this, look at this, look at this. Okay, so thank you. Moving on, thank you, seriously, thank you, I'll share that with her when she comes in. Moving on to the regular meeting session, approval of the minutes from the April 17th meeting. Carl moves, Larry seconds, discussion. No discussion, thank you, Molly. Vote on the matter, all in favor? Tom, is your hand up? Yeah, your other hand is up. We have 8-0. Take note for the record that Tom is Molly this morning. He volunteered. He volunteered, even though he has military background, he volunteered. Molly hopes that she's back next time. We hope that she's back next time. Communications sent and received, Larry?
There were no communications received via the copy or via email.
No, and no. Okay. Old business, bylaw revision, status update, Tom, and then Carl.
Okay, as we described the last council meeting, we approved the submission of a request to hold a special meeting, which will be held on May 28th at 3 o'clock in the PAC. The notice was prepared and sent out on the 28th of April. to the powers that have the ability to send communications through the community. I've not seen it, so, it's there, it's coming, wait for it. But basically, it's what was read at the meeting last time, just defining what we want to change in the bylaws, why we want to change it, and then a copy of the proposed new bylaws will be available. And that will be brought up at the special meeting. That is done.
So you're gonna follow up with Lindsay that it'll be the same
Right,
mechanism she used last time.
yes, and we'll also make sure that it's in the Chanticleer that people know to come, because this is your rights as a residence, a residence agreement to vote on this, so we need your vote.
Okay, I noticed in the calendar that came out yesterday, it wasn't in the calendar, the association meeting is. So we're gonna have to publicize that we're having a special meeting as well somehow. Okay, that's part one. Part two is Carl's gonna tell us how the actual voting procedure is gonna work.
Not complicated, except for Tom's part of deciding whether everything goes on the ballot, everything that, all the changes. Okay, you're planning on doing that?
It's only 4 changes.
Yeah, but somehow it'll have to be done on there. So the meeting is May 28th at 3 o'clock. It's a combined meeting of the Residents Council and of the Residents Association. 2 different meetings will be, but. And we'll present the procedure, and then immediately following that meeting, will there be questions at that meeting? Room for questions? Are you planning on that?
Yes,
Okay.
yes.
Question and answers. Immediately following the meeting, the ballot box will be at the concierge. The concierge will have the ballots and you can start voting. And we're going to continue voting until Wednesday of that week at noon, at which time Dave and I and one other volunteer will count the ballots and announce them immediately. Now, to become official, we have to have 25% of all voters. That's approximately 76 ballots cast. Otherwise, the voting doesn't count. And in order to pass, 2/3 of the ballots cast must be for yes ballots. Ballot box will be at the concierge desk, as I said, and Sue Close will be in charge of voting in the health center. She'll have ballots and she will decide which people she should, based on her knowledge of who they are and their degree of ability to be aware of what's going on, she will gather ballots from the health center. And that's the whole story.
One clarification, I think you said something about 25%. It's 25% of people who hold a residence and care agreement. But not 25% of people have to be sitting in the audience, but 25% of our, what I'll call our community, which is probably going to be approximately 75 people have to participate. And then, as Carl said, for anything to pass, to become part of the new bylaws, 2/3 have to be affirmative. So, thank you, Carl. Questions from the table? Okay, Carl's our veteran in electioneering and vote counting. He's done it for the council elections several times off and on over the past few years. So thank you for volunteering. He actually thanked me for asking him. Yes, he did.
That was a cynical remark.
I don't do nuance. Moving on to our committee reviews. This is the first day of the month, so the committees that normally meet the first week of the month haven't met yet, so this could be brief. Carl, you've got the mic. Do what you need to do.
Okay, the health center committee was interesting because they invited Phil Cavello and Jared Kutz. And the 2 of them talked at length about how very complicated the food choice program is in the health center. They tried various systems of people ordering their food in advance. They had ideas that would stimulate people in memory care to pay attention to this. It didn't work out very well. People were forgetting or changing their minds. So they worked very hard to track what people like. And they bring, even though in the memory care, there are only 16 people at the moment, they bring choices and extras so that people can make up their mind then and there. And they keep extensive records of who eats what, not so much what they've eaten, well, yes, what they've eaten, and also the size of their portions, so that they have a pretty good idea of what people need. Okay. I asked if there's a policy there on loved ones eating with residents, and they said there is no policy and it is not discouraged, but they wouldn't give me a policy. Jill Ordner said that Charles Lance, longtime valued member of the committee, who just died, is very much missed. Sean Schwartz raised the problem of poor attendance at skilled nursing residence council. Well, as this council, we all show up, except for the ones who are in the hospital. They're having the problem of not enough attendance. That's it.
Questions, comments? Well, you have anything on your committees? No? Kathy, no? Dave, no? Julie, no? Yes, Larry's a yes.
Okay. Our Land Conservation Committee last met one day after the last meeting of this group. So, also a activity that we sponsor and have done for several years, the highway cleanup, that took place for the first time this year on the following Monday, the 21st. And I believe it set a new record for the number of people involved in it, residents and staff alike.
We had 20 people out there, 3 staff, and 20 residents. Staff were Lindsay, Jason, and Terrell had to leave early because this audit just started, but we did that. There was 3 and
a potential future staff member, Lindsay's daughter. Anyway, who's 6 years old. Anyway, so we have 2 upcoming presentations, one later this month, now that we're in May, that will feature a local professional photographer. And speaking about the 2 books of photos that she has published so far, working on a 3rd. They're both, by the way, routinely on sale in Bedford's. And in July, our speaker will be a board member from the Millwood Reserve, which of course is our immediate next door neighbor. Then a question did arise at that meeting as to how many memorial benches will be permitted along the trails. And the answer from management is, and I quote, "When the trails were designed, the bench pads were included in that design. There are 10 bench pads in total from Branch to McBride, and that is the maximum number of benches we will have. We currently have 7 out on the trails, awaiting the arrival of 1 more, meaning there are now 2 vacant pads left." That's it.
questions for Larry? I've been on the trail a couple times since the benches are put out there, and they're nicely placed, and I know everyone's got her pet Ponder's bench out there with a nice inscription on it.
Now, I do also have something to say about the board meeting.
Anything more for Larry about the land conservation gang? Okay, go ahead.
Okay, again, since our last meeting here, I prepared and submitted to the board my usual monthly highlighting of some of the activities taking place here. I have a printout of that, which I will duly pass along to the secretary. But somewhat unusually, in my limited experience so far, the meetings, by the way, are on Zoom. I was there and I was queried as to, after I gave my brief presentation, as to anything additional I might want to say. And so one of the things I brought up was something that could not have been included in my written report because it hadn't yet occurred, and that was the inspection by the Department of Health, which took place over the first 4 days of last week. And I mentioned that, and Michelle, who was also in attendance, immediately hopped onto that and went on for 5 or 10 minutes explaining what it involved and so on and so forth. It was not yet over at that time, so she couldn't speculate as to what the result might be. But anyway, the board was quite interested in that and did ask a number of questions. So I was there for 25 minutes rather than the 10 or 15 that is more usual.
You spent more time talking than in one meeting than I did all last year.
The luck of the draw.
But it's good that they're responsive and interactive with you and inquisitive. I like that. Tom doesn't have anything. Evelyn, you had knows from yours. Yakov has something on behalf of his political affairs.
The Political Affairs Committee, I believe I don't remember if I mentioned that we are now 4 members. I mean, we used to be 2 just until several months ago. The 2 new people are Jay Mandel and Norman Breyer. We had a meeting on April 20, and I will pass around the minutes. Basically, we were organizing the presentation that happened yesterday by Tim Rogers, the town mayor, and Amanda Goto, Tim Rogers is the village mayor, and Amanda Goto, the supervisor of the town. The main issue is about the reorganization of the governance of New Paltz. The presentation happened yesterday. It was pretty well attended, I mean, reasonably well attended. I think we have approximately 25-30 people. Nobody fell asleep, so I guess it was interactive. The proposal is going to come up. I mean, there is a schedule for how this is going to proceed. So people that were there ask questions. Let me see. Norman was a very good moderator of the session and was very specific because he has some experience about this type of organizations in general. So this is basically, that's it. Any questions about that?
I just have a comment. I don't think the Political Affairs Committee is on the list of committees that give reports at this time. I wonder why it has suddenly been added.
He gave me a report. He gave me some minutes and a report.
Yeah, but it's not on the list of committees that report to this body.
It's not on the list of committees that has a liaison, which is why it's not on our, which is why it's not on this list.
Right.
But he asked to come forward and make a report, so I said, okay.
Whatever.
Would you want to not have him?
No, I didn't understand the
That's all,
protocol.
nothing. If a interest group or other non-liaison committee wants to make a report, I'd also welcome it.
Oh,
I think the committee, I think the council, but not today, the council would.
never did this before.
No, because it never came up before.
Any questions about it?
No, not them. Okay, so hey, we're moving right along. That takes care of our. We have no topics for council review under new business, which is actually old business from last time. The Residents Association meeting. You guys might recall that in the meeting last time, just 2 weeks ago, we asked for suggested topics. We proposed a couple topics, maybe some metrics, maybe an update on construction, And an audience member said, well, how about we do something or try to do something about where we've all come from, or why we're, how we came to be here, maybe some of our background information as not individual, but as a statistical mass. And I chewed on that a little bit, as did Tom and maybe some of the others. We think there's something there. And I'm just wondering what the rest of the council thinks. Should we pursue something along those lines? Maybe get marketing involved or some background information as to where people have come from, the average age they are, how long they stay here, and any other, call it demographic or any other data. We're only looking to fill approximately a half hour. I'm gonna say that the special meeting will take a half hour, maybe this other part will take a half hour. I think there's could be some interesting things there. We could either have Tom, who's always volunteering to do charts and whatnot, do something. Or we could have him and maybe Shannon do something together, she speaking and he do the PowerPoint or something like that. These are ideas, this is nothing in concrete. Is that worth pursuing, to you all think? I'm getting a nice nod from Carl. Tom thinks he can do it pretty quickly together. Everyone's got a comment? Okay.
That demographics thing.
No, I hope that's. It could be, why not, sure.
Yeah, that sounds like an interesting idea to me. I suspect, being now a 9-year resident, that the demographics now are perhaps a bit different than from the early days. I suspect that early days, there were more people from the local area as a percentage of the total population, and now that's probably more diverse. We have a whole California contingent, for example.
Yes, I know. Oh, I said that out loud, didn't I?
So anyway,
It's just, there's lots of, I think.
it'll be interesting. We'll see.
Where people fit into or don't, and as you said, from the old days to now. Maybe there's a younger group coming in, maybe there's an older group, I don't know what it is, what they know about show, but I think it's worth churning it and seeing what we can get out of it.
Yeah, well, I know that, speaking from the experience of walking down the halls several years ago and being able to say hello by name to a great many people here, now I don't even recognize them, let alone know their names.
Larry, they don't know you either.
They're lost.
They're lost. Okay, so, good morning, Michelle. So are we settled that this is something we want to pursue for that meeting? And that Tom and I'll get together with Shannon and Courtney and see what we can come up with.
And it will be dependent upon what they can tell us.
What they can tell us.
You know, okay, so next meeting, we may have to update you with a,
Are you gonna be here?
yeah,
I mean,
I'll be
you're
back.
traveling.
I'll be back,
Going to, oh, not California, Colorado.
Denver, yes.
Michelle, what we just concluded was for our next association meeting is we're gonna try to work with the marketing department to cull some information about where we've all come from, how long we've been here, how old we are when we get here, how long we stay, some demographic data, and do some slides and hopefully make it interesting. Okay, so thank you for coming. Would you like to start with what came up in ears this morning, or I'll list that we worked on yesterday?
Let's do ears.
So, Carl and I introduced the topic of what can we do, what might we do in terms of the capital campaign, would it be appropriate or practical to propose that to you now that you've given what you've given us yesterday? And the tone of the room was yes, but be careful, because I started out as saying we could maybe do something standalone, for instance, the PAC. And several people said, well, a standalone is not always standalone. There's always connections to this and that and other ripples. But the tone in the room was, please consider it.
Okay,
Please.
well, and I appreciate that, and I hadn't thought about it, yesterday, and a few people did contact me after the meeting, and I certainly want to have the conversation if residents want to. For the PAC, it is, the cost estimates that we are putting together and the renderings that we're having done obviously include the attachments and the ante rooms and all that kind of stuff. So when we say the PAC, it's the whole thing. And so we'll have a good idea of where that pricing is coming in, so that certainly is something that could be done. If we were able to raise the capital for that, we could start that immediately. We don't need any additional permits, it's all approved. The other opportunity is the wellness wing, because that can get done in the same exact way. And both of those have some of the issues that we were talking about yesterday, like they both need foundation work, so there's a lot of site work. So those are things that if we wanted to target a capital campaign, they would be two areas that we could, I believe, get enough resident support to fund them, but we could also start them immediately.
You talked about the back in a couple months ago as maybe being a $5 million pricing. What would the price tag for the wellness center be? If you know?
I don't know, and I don't wanna misspeak, but definitely not 5 million. I think it's probably 2-ish.
If you got 2 million, you could do that. If you got 5, you could do the other. If you got 7, you could do both.
So,
And 7's a lot for 7.
yeah, I mean, it is, but, you know, we would just have to kind of figure out what we wanna do. I wouldn't wanna dilute one. I think that based on the tone of the room yesterday, you all probably heard the joking comment about how we need the new path, when I was starting to talk. You know, I really think that there's a need for it. I think there's such a usage of our path and such a desire to have better capability there that I think that should be the target. I think that if it's gonna happen, I think we should focus our efforts, and I think it should be on the PAC and its surrounds. And secondarily, if the residents find that to be successful and we get, you know, because the capital campaign wouldn't just be for existing residents, it would be for family members of residents that have left, it would be for business partners. You know, it would be broad and, you know, the board, leadership, etc. So we would delve into it and see how it goes. But I think my thought is, and I'll talk about this with Dave Roberts, but I think we should start simple. If we're gonna do it and not try to do both. I'm just letting you know those would be opportunities that can be done freestanding, and depending on how it goes, decide if we wanna do, you know, an extension of that. Carl?
My thought was essentially that we don't want to lose the momentum that we have. And the plan was, if everything had gone properly, we were gonna start with the health center and the dining rooms, I believe, no?
No, we were gonna start, the health center is years off, the health center is in phase 2.
No, I mean the
Oh, the wellness.
wellness.
Yeah, so the current phasing has us starting foundation work simultaneously with the main kitchen renovation. I don't think that I would feel comfortable doing anything with dining at all out of Woodland Pond Capital or a capital campaign, because I think that has tendrils, and I think it's not as contained as something as the PAC is a very clean addition. It's a very, you know, we can do that without having tentacles into other things. It's more of a contained project. And I think the residents want that new PAC. I get the sense that that's something that residents are very excited about.
Audience, you participated in gathering information for her. Is there anything you'd like on this topic? John?
I have to assume in the fundraising project that it would be nonprofit to nonprofit, so one could do a required minimum distribution tax-free to it.
Yes.
Which is important considering right now this year, considering the money in the IRAs is way down, but the fee is based on last year's. So it'd be a good year for me to think about it.
Yeah, and we're very fortunate in that Sally Cross is on our board, and her career was, well, finished at Community Foundations of Hudson Valley, and so she's astute in these kinds of things, and she's been really guiding us in terms of how to approach a capital campaign, and, making sure there's education on required minimum distributions and other ways that you can do this, and, with tax benefits and other things, so I think we should put it back on the table for some discussion. I don't know exactly what the right approach is to that, but I appreciate you bringing it up. And I really do think if we want to proceed with this to be the most successful, I think it would be to just target one project that we think we can start on right away, and that would be the path.
Just one comment, which I'm sure that you're plenty aware that it was raised earlier by Taylor, that standalone, implies usually a much more expense per benefit or whatever you are trying to do. When you combine things, I mean, you have savings because of larger project.
Yeah, I mean, we certainly would take that into account, and we'd have to see how much more it was gonna cost us to do it if we were gonna do it by itself. And we'll have to just kind of see where the evaluation comes out. Ideally, what I would like to see happen is that we get a cost estimate for wellness and determine if Woodland Pond, out of its annual capital budget, could fund that simultaneously to the PAC happening, because then you'd have at least some co-efficiencies going on. And then hopefully by the time those are underway, we get good news from the Department of Health. And so while they're still mobilized, we just keep going and bring everything inside.
Okay, thank you. Moving on. Michelle and I had some topics we discussed yesterday that you'd like to bring up to date on and would like to hear more about. You touched on MAGE yesterday. Is there anything more you want to say about that?
No, I think for those that heard, I think I summarized it as well as I could have, which is that it's got a lot of momentum in the legislature. It's already halfway passed through. It needs to go, I don't remember if it was the Assembly or the Senate that passed it, but it passed. It needs to get the other body approval, and then it'll go to the governor's desk. So I'm not sure where the governor is on it. What I did say today than what I said yesterday was the survey has been great. The people that have responded are by and large, I mean, proponents of the bill, but it prompted an opportunity for people to say, okay, do you like the bill, but what would you want to see changed about it? And there was good dialogue in there. So I think it would be good for us to schedule a session to allow residents to have, I don't want to say debate, but discussion about different aspects. And I was not surprised by this, but when the comments came in, most of them indicated that they support the bill as is, but would really like to see it even more liberalized. In other words, opportunities for somebody to put this in as an advanced directive, or if you can't physically take the pills yourself, be able to designate someone to do that. I think if that's going to be an opportunity, that's going to be down the road. I think if we can just get the door open with the existing MAID bill, that gives a lot more opportunity than not. But Woodland Pond is not going to take an official position on it. I think it has enough momentum at the state level. I don't think we need to, but it's been really great taking the temperature of the community, and I think that there's a bigger conversation to be had.
And that would be a panel discussion, you
Yeah,
said?
we do a panel. We did one a few years ago. It was myself, Ray Smith. I think somebody from the Mental Health and Wellness Task Force, but Ray talked about his experience with Anne with VSED. And if you haven't read his book on that, I would highly recommend it. It's in the library. So VSED stands for Voluntarily Stopping Eating and Drinking, which Ray's wife undertook when she was faced with a terminal illness. And they did it doctor guided because there was no MAID option available for them. And they had done a ton of research on what to expect with the VSED process, and Anne's experience was dramatically different than what they expected, and not to the positive. But it's a great book, and it's a quick read. So if you haven't read it, it's very good. And it gives you an idea of one of the alternatives that's currently available in New York, but how it's kind of not ideal. I mean, imagine stopping eating and drinking and then letting nature take its course. It was a good read.
Okay, thank you. We also talked about the note that was put out earlier this week, I guess, or like last week, about introducing a grievance officer into independent living. And my understanding of this is that's another, but not the necessarily the preferred, or certainly not the only way that you can bring a matter forward. You always have the suggestion boxes, you always have the ear sessions. You have going to a particular committee which may have oversight. Catching one of us in the hallway or not. Private time with Michelle, if that's your chosen method of expressing yourself. But this is just another, but not supposed to be replacing anything or being above anything else. It's an alternate way to get your point of view.
Yes, and that was something that came up as one of the comments from the Department of Health surveyors, because we take feedback from families and residents in a variety of ways, a million different ways. And we've always had the grievance forms. But what the state was saying is that the grievance forms are actually a tool for us to be able to demonstrate, here's what was raised and here's how we responded to it in a formalized record. So that's really important for the regulated environments. It's not required by any means in independent living, but we like to have consistency between health center and independent living. So we're adding it just as an optional, additional way to get something into Woodland Pond as a concern or suggestion. I'm trialing it right now. So yesterday there were 3 new things that came in the suggestion box. So I actually translated them into a grievance form. I'm not gonna have a person to respond to, but I wanna run it through my management process to see how everybody responds. So we're treated it like it would be a grievance, and we're tracking to see how well the system that we think is gonna work.
Do you have some update on the invited speaker forms?
Yes,
Process?
so there's gonna be a revised process and form issued hopefully within the next week or two. Because we've found some things that we need to make sure are happening. The last time we talked, and the current version of the form reflects the last discussion, which was that we decided that we would be comfortable excluding facilitators from being required to be vetted, et cetera. So we defined facilitator on the form. So if you get the form now, it says a facilitator is someone that is coming to a group meeting. They are invited, they can be inside or outside. But they are really doing 5 or 10 minutes on a topic and then kicking off a discussion. So we're still comfortable with that. But what we ran into this week was there's no formal way for Bridget and the person who's bringing the speaker in to determine if the person's a facilitator or not. So we need to add that section to the form. So it's defined there now, but we want all of them to still be submitted to Lynn. And side note, everything's gonna run through Lindsay. Lindsay will take care of everything on the back end with Gretchen and Bridget. But everything's gonna run through Lindsay. That's gonna be part of the process change. She'll make sure, so like Shalom Space has 5 speakers coming in. I don't wanna say speakers, 5 guests coming in May. And it was determined, and we agree that they're facilitators, but we need to have some kind of record that said that they said facilitator, we signed off on it, and they don't need to be vetted. So that's gonna be added to the form. Everything's gonna run through Lindsay, so the only resident contact is gonna be with Lindsay on this. It's not gonna go through concierge, it's not gonna go through Bridget or Gretchen. So Lindsay's gonna be the conduit for everything. She's gonna keep all of the records. And we need to have everything in 15 days before the end of the month for the next month. Otherwise Gretchen can't get it on the calendar. So she needs that 2-week period. So that is also going to be on the form.
So 2 big changes to timing and the fact there's one point of contact,
Yes.
which I think eats up some of the concerns I've heard.
Yeah. So I've talked through that with Bridget. I've talked through that with a few of the residents that, have been continuing to put requests in. Everybody seems to understand those changes. I think they're gonna make sense. We're continuing to tweak the process. I'll take any additional feedback, but that's currently the planned revision.
Comments from the table or the audience on that?
I think Larry has
Oh,
something.
and then, yeah.
I guess I understand most of that, the business of the advanced notification. It bumps up in the case of Land Conservation Committee, we have routinely, with Gretch, assumed that we could have someone's at one point, not yet even named, to be speaking to us in odd number months on the third Tuesday. And so that just is a blocking out of the calendar without anything specific. Now, it sounds to me like we can't do that anymore.
No, but you can still do that. You can put holds on the calendar, we can't publish who it is or put it in the newsletter unless they've been vetted. So that's a separate thing, like that's the scheduling piece. You have a block and that block will stay.
Okay. Now, the other thing that comes up is, excuse me, we have a speaker coming later this month. All the approvals have been in place. I sent to her the speaker acknowledgement form, not the authorization form. There are two forms here. People have to be reminded of that. And I told her she could bring it when she comes. And that has been approved, but apparently that's an exception. What you want now is to get the acceptance or the acknowledgement form from the speaker, how many weeks ahead?
Well, it has to be 2 weeks before the end of the month of the event.
So, in this one case, that doesn't apply. We've been given an exception. But in the future, so if we have somebody coming in the third week of a given month, we have to have 5 weeks ahead.
Mhm.
I hope that works. I don't know. It's
Well, I mean-
very complicated, and the more
It's-
complicated it gets, the less enthusiastic I am about going on to.
I think that you're thinking worst case scenario, it's actually very doable, and I think with Lindsay's help, it'll be seamless. I think you're just gonna give her the contact information of the person, she can reach out to them, get the forms. So we're gonna pick up the lift on a lot of this stuff.
Okay.
And, we're working on making it a fillable PDF, like it'll roll. But I think bringing it through Lindsay will make it much more seamless. So I think let's just let it play out and then we'll tweak it if we have to. Okay.
I'll start with this topic first because I found essentially the same feeling about having to submit things and not always is possible to do these arrangements, like 5-6 weeks. As a matter of fact, for May, our speaker is going to be it's a person here in-house. He was just speaking about 2 weeks ago. And now because he's going to speak in a different topic, with a different committee, basically. It's like November, I think it's going to be May 27 or 29. And we were already exceeding the 6 weeks notice because, we were supposed to have done that 15 days before. We didn't even think about that.
But I just changed it, Yakov, you wouldn't have known that, so I don't wanna go in the past,
Okay,
and they only have to sign the form one time,
the acknowledgement.
yes.
Well, that's another thing that I brought with Bridget, probably that's why she brought it up. Because you need it, okay. The other thing, which is with the topic of MAID, this sounds to me like it's a political topic because this is going to be on the ballot. Okay, so you mentioned that you wouldn't want to take a position. But I think that, that fits into the category of things that we need to be presenting this, even pros and cons. That's the way we usually do when there is a subject to be voted on. So you have any particular concern about that?
I don't think anybody here is gonna be voting on it. It's gonna get passed in the legislature probably this week, and then it's gonna be on the governor's desk, so it's not gonna be something that we're voting on. The last time we did it, it was just a panel discussion for people to talk about pros and cons and talk amongst ourselves. I would see no, I mean, I don't see how politically that would come to the taxpayers. It's being handled in the legislature, so the elected officials are already dealing with it.
Well, I mean, the rule for political affairs is not just if it impacts your taxes. It's if it's something of interest to you as a citizen or as a voter in general. So sometimes we invite, elected officials to talk about things that are of concern to our residents.
I understand that. I don't think I'm understanding your question. Are you asking if this should run through the political affairs committee?
If this wouldn't be an appropriate topic that political affairs invites, pros and cons. By the way, I am not an expert on reading bills, but I tried to read the bill that was distributed. It's first of all, it's impossible to read. It's not English. I mean, I still trying to understand that and the logic of things. But there are probably a lot of details there that we would benefit as a community for somebody to focus. Look, this is what this means.
Right,
Because
so,
reading the bill is, I mean, I know how to read bills because I was involved in passing one bill. And this is much more complicated than that.
yeah, I don't think necessarily political affairs is the right committee to take it, but I don't really care who takes it on. In the past, all of it's run through the Mental Health and Wellness Committee. So we have an organization that we brought in for multiple occasions to talk about MAID, to talk about the legislation, to give the residents an opportunity to talk about pros and cons. They're the ones that are well versed in it. It's called Compassionate Care or Compassion and Care. We have a relationship with them already. So it would just be an extension of that. And I think they're brought in typically by the Mental Health and Wellness Committee. So I think it doesn't matter to me who it attaches to. I just would like to open the conversation up for the residents. Okay.
Moving on. You had a topic you want to introduce about assisted devices?
Yes.
Assistive devices?
Yes, so around 3-ish weeks ago, Jonathan Papan, who is our director of rehab, reached out to Philip Mail and I, Philip's the administrator of the health center, to let us know that he would be drafting a power mobility, I don't wanna say if it's a policy, power mobility guidelines, et cetera, based on his observations over the last, he's been here for 12 years. Over the last 12 years, of some of the risks of power mobility and how to address those in the community. So we currently have a power mobility device, very brief description and policy in our handbook, but he really wanted to take this from a safety and rehab perspective. So Philip and I gave him the authorization to draft something, and he has. So it's in a draft form and it includes all of basically the front, it's 2 pages. The front of it is all of the recommendations that rehab has about how to approach power mobility, how to use your devices safely, how to get re-educated on that, how rehab plays a role. Our rehab department can do evaluations and training, things like that. The back page is, I don't want to say the consequences section, but it's if we have concerns about your power mobility use, what is the progressive intervention that we will employ when we have concerns? And it's different for the health center than it is independent living. Both sections are heavily focused on safety, obviously, and both sections start with, the least restrictive intervention, like a verbal warning and a re-education with the rehab department. And then it gets more stringent as it goes on if there are repeat violations of the power mobility guidelines policy. So it's in draft form. I would like to ask the Residents' Council to review the confidential draft. So I'm asking you to review it confidentially at this point. And I would like your feedback on it. Just to let me know what you think. Again, understanding that this was raised by the person on this campus that I think has the most insight into safe mobility issues. Jonathan is excellent at his job. And he wouldn't have raised this if he wasn't concerned about it. So I'd like your feedback on it.
Okay, so, at a meeting, 2 meetings ago, that I wasn't at, you all discussed the process for giving her feedback. And I believe you, in my absence, decided I would be the point person for that. Fine. When do you want this? Well, you want 2 weeks after you give it to us, or?
I mean, Jonathan's anxious to get it rocking and rolling, and he may implement it the health center side. Philip is letting Jonathan run that, but on the independent living side, I want feedback. I would like the policies to be consistent, even if the interventions are not. And you'll see on the draft that I have prepared for you. I have a note there that says, obviously, you know, some of the things that we're looking at in the progression of interventions for independent living are different than they are in the health center. Our primary goal is to keep people in their power mobility as long as possible, because for some people it's the difference between independence and not. So, and I have a note there saying that, and that will probably come out of the policy. This is just a note more for you as you read it, understanding what we're thinking and how we're approaching it.
So how much time do you want us to take to get back to you?
No more than 2 weeks.
And you're gonna, so for when you give it, we'll have 2 weeks. So council, please, whatever document she sends, respond onto that so they all stay accumulated. I've seen this, and I think it's important that if you have a point of disagreement, to say what it is and how you would word it differently, not just say, this is no good, or this is good.
I actually added that in there because that's helpful for me, because sometimes we'll have policy drafts that we'll put out, people will object to something. I wanna start routinely approaching it as, okay, that's okay if you don't like it, but what would you propose in its place? I think that's a good process to have.
Okay, Larry,
Does this define what is meant by power device? The reason I raise that is because at the one extreme end, possibly, what about e-bikes? And I ask that because the other day, and I brought this attention, I think to you, a note to Lindsay, I observed an e-bike, I don't know if it's a resident or a visitor, riding it on a sidewalk here, which I think is probably not a good idea. And the only place that sidewalk led to was either to a set of steps going down, which I doubt they were headed for on an e-bike, or to an external entry door. And so what is somebody doing bringing an e-bike into the building, given all the problems with e-bike batteries and fires?
So Tom actually drafted an e-bike and e-scooter policy that our safety committee is reviewing at its next meeting. So that policy is drafted and separate, but it addresses the use, the locations, the storage. We have all the same concerns, and we didn't have an existing policy. So that is drafted, but separate from the power mobility. I don't remember if power mobility is defined. But this is not intended to be for recreational electric devices. This is strictly for things that are used for mobility. Because again, you know, those things to me are a recreational option. Power mobility, as I said, for most users, it's the difference between being able to be somewhat independent and not. So we look at that and we treat those with more reverence than we do like an electric scooter.
I'm reading the handbook now, I don't see it, a definition given, but I do see you're supposed to have insurance if you have one of these things.
Everybody's supposed to have insurance here anyway. It's required under your contract to have
Personal
personal
liability.
liability
That's part of
insurance.
it.
It is required. I know Mary Alexander is working with residents right now to make sure that all of the contractually obligated insurances and important documents are on file with us. I'm not sure if she's checking the PLGL, but it is required under your residence and care agreement that you carry personal liability insurance.
Other comments from Michelle on this topic? That is all I can recall from our meeting yesterday. Did you have anything else?
No, we covered everything.
Do you have anything that occurred to you since we met?
No, I just shut my brain off. After that meeting, I just shut my brain off. No, you know, I do just wanna, you know, I don't wanna belabor this, but I do wanna bring this up because it's a thing. So yesterday, you got bereavement notices for 3 people all at once,
Did,
or in the morning today. And that can be stark for this community. That can be, you know, it can happen. You know, we can have this happen. People can be passing away and it can all happen at one time. But I just wanna reflect on it. We are aware that when they come in spurts like this, it's harder sometimes than if it's just one at a time, and it can kind of feel like a gut punch. And I just want to acknowledge that. So if you're struggling with this in any way, Sarah is an excellent resource to talk to, but I would also encourage you just to be open with your neighbors about it, because they may be feeling the same. And I think it's okay to be emotional or feel like things are harder hit. And I also think it's okay for you to say to your neighbor, I didn't know this person. And this is one of the things that we struggle with, because we have residents that have been here for a long time, and we used to only announce people that had been in independent living for sure, but oftentimes had been here within like the last 5 years, because we've got some people in the health center that have been there 9 years. Some of you, and they started in independent living, a lot of you don't know them. And we've debated about what the right thing to do is with making those bereavement announcements, but I don't know, 3 or 4 years ago, we switched to that we do them for everyone, because we feel that everyone is important, and even if you may not know them, they were a part of the Woodland Pond family.
Yeah.
And so I think it's also okay for you to say, I didn't know this person, did you? You know, it's okay to acknowledge that. You don't have to hide that, and that's okay too. I just want to encourage you to be and feel however you feel about this, and talk to us about it if you're struggling with it. And just talk to each other too. We do have a couple of other people right now that are very close to passing. We've got 3 people in independent living that are on hospice. So I think that you're gonna see a rash of this happening over the next like 4 weeks. So just, you know, be conscientious and empathetic with your neighbors, and it's okay to talk about it.
thank you, we did mention it earlier.
Okay. The other thing that we decided on that same topic, and then I'm gonna go, is hopefully the pet ponders knows this. We're planning on doing bereavement notices for pets also. Because the pet is a big part of your family. And so it's important for your neighbors to know if you've lost your pet. So when we become aware of it, we are gonna do bereavement notices for pets as well.
Thank you.
No, oh, already.
Yeah, if you can help me, please.
My wife and I have been here over 7 years, and there are many individuals who have moved over to the health side, and we have lost them, and we have been affected by them, getting to know them. But besides and passing away is very sorrowful, but we've also lost people on the wait staff and maintenance staff. Not by death, but being missing. In fact, this morning I just learned of another young man who I'm happy for him, but he is moving on to a different job, and it's just sad when we see that individuals in the wait staff and the maintenance staff having to be let go because of personal reasons or reasons that come up as a result of their work. So that's just something that we feel, Sharon and I, with individuals. Thank you.
Yeah, absolutely. We recognize that. So I think it's just normalizing the conversation and encouraging you to speak to your neighbors about these kinds of things. And we can do a better job too of letting you know, because especially like in wait staff, a lot of the college students will be here and then they may leave for the summer and then they don't come back in the fall, and maybe you were thinking they were gonna come back. as long as it's voluntary on their part and they're willing to have us share, we can share that information with you. So you have a little bit more insight as to what's going on. All right, does anyone have anything else?
Personal mobility, scooters, electric bikes. I feel fine in independent living, but my son might decide I'm not a good driver. So he might take my car away from me, which I'm not gonna fight. But I still need to get to Tops. So a scooter now becomes a mobility machine for me, or a bicycle.
Yeah.
We were not able to be here yesterday, so we have looked on YouTube for your presentation, which we heard was wonderful, and we would like to know if it is going to be there.
It's not going to be publicly available, but we're gonna give you information as to how you can get the link. We will send it to those people that are interested. I'm gonna be very honest with you. I had reservations about making it public because although I was trying to be as careful as I could be, I don't wanna piss off the people that were trying to get something out of it, quite frankly. And the individual that is holding all the cards right now, he's a subscriber to our YouTube channel and he watches most of my weekly updates. So I had reservations about it and I didn't get to Jason in time, and he's super efficient and he'd already gotten it up and it was posted publicly. And like 10 minutes after the thing, I said, get it down, I want it just to be private and then we'll circulate it to the residents. And he's like, there's already been 4 views, so then, so of course I'm thinking, did he see it, did he watch it? I tried to be very careful, I tried not to lay too much blame, but I had to say, this is what's going on, and I didn't name his name. But then last evening at like 7 o'clock, I get a 518 phone number on my phone. So I'm like, oh my God, he watched it, he's calling me on my cell, like, anyway, it was a spam call, but you can understand why I would be spiraling. But yes, we're gonna make it available, it's just not gonna be up publicly.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
I had no trouble getting it.
You're right, quick work.
Well, did you get it on YouTube or did you watch it on
YouTube,
yesterday?
last evening,
Last evening.
and I didn't get to watch the whole thing, so it's on pause. And I assume it'll still be there when I go back to it.
Well, I tried this morning and I couldn't.
I couldn't get it.
Yeah.
So I
I
tried.
didn't even have, I just did a regular search and I got it.
Well, we're gonna have to look into that.
One thing is, and I talked about it, don't, but they were talking about people leaving. There are a couple of people leaving. Can you say anything about anything that's going on relative to that? You talked about a couple of possibilities.
Yeah, so Mary Jo and Gretchen obviously are leaving. Mary Jo's leaving next week. Monday, I think, is her last day. Liz Elliott actually started today, her replacement, and she jumped right in. We had a 911 call 5 minutes after she got here, so we got us together. She hit the ground running, but you know, we understand the resident desire to recognize people that you see a lot. And I myself have been a beneficiary of that with that surprise cheers that we did during COVID or right after COVID. So I know that this probably sounds hypocritical. That was a surprise, though. I didn't plan it. But the challenge is there are a lot of people that are here for a long time that you don't see and that leave. And so when we set precedent of what we're gonna do, we have to be really careful with this stuff. And it's been the same thing with favorite maintenance people or favorite people in the dining room. And we completely understand that you grow attachments to folks. But in this case, you know, we've had other retirements and we haven't done anything. It's not like a state retirement. These are folks that are leaving, but we're trying to balance how do we give an opportunity to recognize them in a way that they're comfortable with. So I don't know if any of you have talked to Mary Jo or Gretchen about their departures, but MJ is 1 foot out the door and couldn't be more excited. She is thrilled, couldn't have come fast enough, like she's just ready to rock and roll. She did not want a party or a celebration, but she's absolutely welcoming all of everything that you're doing, whatever you guys are doing to support her, she's welcoming it. She's happy, she feels loved. We did ask a resident. Hopefully Mary Jo's not gonna watch this, but we did ask a resident to make a decorative card box for each of them. So that your cards, I'm sure you're gonna give cards, you're welcome to, can be collected, and it's a really nice commemorative box. She customized them for each person. They're large and really nice. And with Gretchen, she hasn't made her final decisions yet, and she has more reservation about the whole thing. She also is very introverted and quiet, and it's a more delicate situation. She was emphatic that she didn't want a party. And I'm not sure that she's emotionally or mentally ready yet to start accepting the cheers and the goodbyes in the same way that MJ is, because she's still not sure of her plans. So I would just ask you to approach it delicately. One of the things we talked about possibly, and this was just an internal discussion, I haven't had a conversation with Sarah to see what her thoughts are on it yet, and then it would be a discussion with Mary Jo and Gretchen, is the possibility of doing a walkout for each of them. So if you're not familiar with that concept, it's something that's done routinely in law enforcement. It's just where everybody lines up and cheers you on your way out. Make me emotional. But that's it could be a nice option. It's not the party and it's not setting some crazy precedent, but it's still a really nice gesture.
But they have to want this to
Yes,
happen.
we wouldn't wanna force it on them. I think that they should have a say in it. So I'm gonna talk to Sarah first and she would see what she thinks. My gut is telling me MJ would love it. Cause she's skipping and, I think she'd like to see us. Right.
So, Michelle's husband is retired law enforcement, so maybe she's emotional about remembering that, and for him,
That's why.
which was only a couple of years ago.
Yeah, and so it's an option though, and I think that it would be kind of cool, if it's something that we could easily do. But my intention is to talk to Sarah about that next, and then we'll maybe implement that.
So it's not a for sure, but it's a for maybe.
Yeah, but definitely, as many cards as you wanna write, letters, those kinds of things, you can give them directly to MJ, drop them off the concierge, and we're gonna make sure she gets that box and she can keep everything and all of her memories in that box. And we're gonna do the same thing for Gretch.
Okay, so thank you for your time.
Thank you, everyone.
See you next month. Oh, I'm sorry, Sue, something.
Just want to thank you for being so discreetly honest yesterday with all of us and making us feel so at home here and comfortable with you at the helm.
Well, thanks.
And your crew. Thank you.
Thanks, Sue, I appreciate it. Hard topics, but you deserve to know. Thanks, everybody.
Gretchen.
Oh, did she? Here's what I need.
So that was our discussion from yesterday. Back into our meeting, we have covered everything except council connections. A week, 2 weeks from today is going to be Matt, the fitness instructor, being interviewed by Joe Cosentino. Yakov and I and George and Wayne will put our heads together and come up with some future interviewees and interviewers. But in the meantime, if you got somebody who you haven't heard from in a while, who you think should be featured on this, let one of us know. There's enough newer folks that we have done repeats, and we probably should do some repeats of either department heads or prominent committee chairs or some other person around town who's noteworthy. Okay, second year session. Alice. And,
Am I correct in assuming that when the bylaws are voted upon, it's either up or down? The individual numbered bylaws, for instance, the one regarding term 3 years versus 2, is not going to be able to be voted upon separately.
wrong. Each would have 4 proposed amendments. Each will be separate, yay or nay or opposed. And in order for anyone to be approved, as we said earlier, it's going to require 2/3 of 25% of the contract holders to approve. So it's not the whole package, yea or nay, it's each of the 4 individual ones, and
Thank
Tom
you.
will set the ballot up that way.
I'm delighted to hear that because Alice will be delighted.
I bet she will.
Yeah, that-
Um,
Thank you.
I bet she will. Anyone else? Okay, thank you all for coming and for your attention and for your participation. See you in 2 weeks. Oh, motion to adjourn, was that what you had said for? Oh, well, okay.
It just occurred to me, this mysterious folder that Alice has with all the information about elections. One election I was involved in a couple of years ago, that folder had disappeared somewhere between the, at that time, chairman of the committee. And I'm wondering, I think we as a council had better get our heads together about who has custody of that folder.
Tom.
What,
It's on.
okay, what is been described as voting isn't voting, it is the nomination process.
Right.
Okay, it's the rule, not the rules, but it's the role of the nominating committee and how they should work and sort of a guideline of the timing that they have to do.
The various documents that they show
Yes,
to the potential candidates.
yes, yes, well, and that is described by each nominating committee, but the file of what that committee did is kept in one binder. And that binder is given to the nominating committee chair for that period. It was supposed to be given back and archived by Irving, but we haven't gotten it back from Alice. So it is not on how to vote, it is just how the nominating committee works.
I'm just worried that it never get lost again.
I have electronic copy of it,
Oh, good.
since I made it up. And I appreciated you coming up with those lost files, but it's all captured in the binder. I know Alice will not have displaced it or misplaced it, so.
So need I be concerned with tracking down Alice's son as I volunteered to do earlier?
No, go ahead and do that.
Okay,
But by the way, you just walked by.
and Alice, could you enter into Alice C? That if she knows where that file is, could she see that it finds its way to Tom?
I will do that. I'll try to do that.
Thank you. Jaka, did you want to move to adjourn?
Not yet. Can we have a process by which files are not kept by an individual, that they have to be accessible? Because I don't know where you keep your files, whether you have backups or whatever. If your computer crashes or whatever, things get lost. So I think there should be a process by which we secure important information, whether has to be of limited, so nobody can access it and so on. Then the access should be something that it's recorded, so we know that we can retrieve that. So there is 2 aspects of that. One of them, the fact that we will not lose them because somebody's computer crashed. And the other one that, I mean, this is that the access to them should be secured somehow.
Senator Murthy, anything else from anybody else? Okay, now we get a motion to adjourn. Larry's hand was up first.
Second.
Tom said. Anybody opposed? Adjourn. Thank you very much. Well,
Yeah.
What a victory. You need that more. You're going, I was getting leaving more on the side.
Yeah, well, we'll just-
Haven't done any of the search.
Yeah, the name is out, it's not.
No.
This. I can do that in my.
That's where I like keeping it.